Let's today I want to talk about David Goggins. I think I'm pronouncing his name right, David Goggins. I never heard of David Goggins until people started asking me about him in some of the super chats, and then somebody sent me a thing on Twitter to watch this guy. So I've watched his interview with Huberman on YouTube. And I've read up a little bit about him and so on. So by no means am I an expert on David Goggins, but I thought, what would we do today? Because I think it's today's the positive day, positive topic day. So today we'll use some of the clips from the Huberman interview to talk about the pursuit of values, to talk about the good things. I mean, I was thinking of calling the show The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of David Goggins, but I didn't want to insult him. So we'll talk about the good things in Goggins, the things I don't agree with, that I think are bad, and indeed the inconsistencies, even in the way he presents the material, because I think there are significant inconsistencies, or at least one big inconsistency in how he presents the material. But all of these are great illuminators on the pursuit of values, because David Goggins is an amazing value pursuer. Here's a kid who grew up very poor. His father abused him. I think hit him, abused him verbally. His mother took him away from his father, left. But never had any money growing up. Also, very early was diagnosed with a variety of learning disabilities. Couldn't read, couldn't. He claims, maybe some of the clips will include this, that just doesn't have the intelligence. He just can't study. He can't read. He can't really comprehend content. It takes him a lot of work to study anything. And at some point, weighed 300 pounds, had no idea what to do with life, was stuck, was miserable, was going nowhere, and then turned it all around. Today he's, I think, 48, 49. He's a retired Navy SEAL. He's the only member of the U.S. Armed Forces to complete SEAL training, Army Ranger School, and Air Force Tactical Air Control training. He is an extraordinary athlete. He has completed 70 ultra-distance races. Like, ultra-distance means marathon is doesn't count. It's nothing, right? Whoops, what happened here? Something got messed up over here. Let me just fix it. He is like a world record holder in pull-ups. Like pull-ups. I don't know if you guys do pull-ups, but they're hard, really hard. I find pull-ups really difficult. And I don't know what is going on here. One second. We got to get rid of all of that, all of that, all of that, all of that. Yeah, all right. So he has done, from somebody who barely does one, right? Pull-ups are hard, always been hard for me. Even when I was young, they were hard. He has done 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours. So he's a former Guinness World Record holder. That's just nuts. He's a inspirational, motivational speaker. He's a sought-after public speaker. He's traveled around the world talking about what he calls his philosophy on how to master the mind. We'll talk a little bit about that. He's also, even though, he has made a lot of money, done very well because of the public speaking, he works as an AET, an advanced emergency technician. In a big city emergency room in a hospital. And he, during the summers, He's a wildland firefighter in British Columbia. So here's a guy. What am I doing? Here's a guy who comes from a truly wildland firefighter in British Columbia. All right, something's not working. All right, there we go. I think we got it under control. Anyway, so here's a guy who comes from nothing, who has been challenged his entire life, who says he's not smart, and who has become an inspiration to millions of people. He is hugely successful as a speaker. He's hugely successful on social media, and he has a new book out. His first book was a bestseller. His new book, I'm sure, will be his bestseller, a bestseller. His new book is called Never Finished: Unshackle Your Mind and Win the War Within. Unshackle your mind and win the war within. Anyway, an interesting character and an extraordinary achiever. An extraordinary achiever. And he just did a 2 hours and 40-minute interview with Huberman, the neuroscientist who has a YouTube channel, very successful YouTube channel, and to talk about his success, what it takes to be successful, and how he gets motivated and all of that. So, and how he got to the point in his life where he went from nothing, from being a loser, basically a complete loser, to being this incredibly successful person. So what I want to do is take some clips of the interview with Huberman. We could take pretty much clips from anywhere, but I've got a few clips lined up, whether we'll use all of them or not, whether we'll use the whole clip or not, whether we just do a few sentences. I don't know, because as you know, I'll stop playing it and immediately I'll interrupt and comment and so on. But I think the David Goggins, what he calls his philosophy, his ideas, are interesting, important, right in important ways, and wrong in important ways. And I think this is a good opportunity to talk about, things like free will, willpower, talk about motivation, talk about the pursuit of values, talk about why Western pursuit of values, the approach to why pursue values, and so on. So that's what we're going to do. Hopefully, this is something that interests you. David Goggins is big out there, and hopefully we'll be able to also make some short videos out of this and get out there. I mean, I guess he's big. I mean, he is big. I know he's big. I had not heard of him until you guys pointed him out. But that's because I'm, not as young as you are, and not as well connected into the world of self-help and motivational speaking and so on. All right, so I am going to show some videos, just to give you a sense, Anyway, that's the title of the book. That's his book. I know a lot of you have never heard of him, but he is quite a character. That's him in studio with Huberman. We're going to be talking about this. I have to admit, the clips are not in any particular order. I didn't invest a huge amount in organizing the clips and and all of that. Partially because no matter where you start with one of these interviews, there's so much content there, and there's so much to say about it, that I figured it doesn't really make sense to overly, prep the videos, because I'm not going to use them all anyway, and who knows what's going to come out from the actual discussion. But here's a guy who's one of the greatest athletes in the world right now, and he's 45 years old and has been for the last 20 years. Just a phenomenal athlete, and somebody who does not have, and he says, and I, no reason to disagree with him, he does not have the genes for it, for the athleticism or the smarts and is yet one of the most successful athletes out there in the world, particularly when it comes to kind of endurance, difficult kind of athleticism, right? Who's been 45 for 20 years? No. 20 years ago, when he was 25, he was not a super athlete. At that point, he was 300 pounds and not doing anything. That's the amazing thing about what he's been able to do over the last 20, 25 years. Anyway, so let's get into this. This is about values. This is about pursuit of values, what it takes to pursue values. And in particular, what I find interesting with David Goggins, and there is a certain similarity between his attitude and the attitude of the movie Whiplash. If you guys have seen the movie Whiplash about the drummer, there's a lot of similarity here. And Goggins is telling us about what it takes to become great, what it takes to be great. And the clip we're going to see now, starting about 6-minute mark, this whole clip is about his view on what it takes to become great in this interview he did with Dr. Andrew Huberman. So let's jump in. And I'll just remind you, show supported by contributors like you, supporters like you, listeners like you. You can support the show by using Super Chat if you're live, or by using Patreon or PayPal if you're not live. But please consider supporting the show. It's what makes this possible. All right, let's jump in. Let's see what I need to do in order to jump in. I need to press play somewhere. Right there.
And maybe that character that I created, that 300-pound insecure guy that used to fake it till I make it type of guy, let me become your friend, let me lie to you until you like me type of guy. When you have any manhood, womanhood.
That is who he was, right? And I find it really interesting. He's completely honest in terms of what he was, lying, faking it, doing nothing, and achieving nothing. And he's talking about the change that he had to go through to become what he is today.
A human being, a soul, a spirit, I must have just this much pride.
And that's also cool, right?
That's exactly what opened the door for me.
He identifies pride as important, right? Pride is the key. Having pride is what makes it possible for you to achieve. It's to move. And when you lie, when you cheat, when you fake reality, when you don't do anything, no pride. No pride.
Because every day you were a character, every day you were a clown, every day you opened that Spanish book or that science book or English book, and you looked at it, it looked like a foreign language. And you're saying, where do I start? Where do I start? And obviously it was necessary. The more I talk about it, it was necessary, because what happened is I became haunted by the mere fact that this is my existence.
And that's self-realization, right? To be able to know yourself, to know that your existence is so crummy, to know that the way you're living is horrible, to know that you have no pride, and in a sense, you have no manhood in his case, or no, what he called humanhood, right? You're not being a human being. In that state, you're not being a human being.
And you got to live with that. And I lived with it for a lot of years. And so I sat back and said, okay, all right, I know what this takes. And when you sit back, as fucked up as I was, and I had a laundry list, a table like this of what I have to do to become just a human being that can make ends meet, that can make $1,000 a month just to get there, was like, oh my God, dude, like I'm 16, 17, I can't read, I can't write, and oh my God, I'm so behind the power curve, and my brain is about being depressed, and my dad beat, my mom's not home, and Kids are calling me nigger at school, and I'm like, oh my God, man, what the fuck do I do? And it wasn't like someone came around and said, hey, man, you can do this. This is all me. So people know, where does this cold man come from? I'm not trying to be cold. It's the reality of my life.
And I think this is what the inspiring part, and this is truly inspiring. I mean, here he is with nothing. Here he is with the worst kind of background you can imagine. And he decides, and we'll get to this in a minute, but he decides, I don't want this life. I want a different life. And he makes a list, and he does it. He executes on it. He fulfills it. And I'm sure those lists kept changing and kept growing and kept changing and morphing, but there's always a list. And this is something all of us could learn from that, right? There's always a list of the things you need to do to make your life better. There's always things that you can improve. There's always things that your manhood, womanhood, humanhood, that your pride requires you to do. You can always step up. And then the fundamental question in life is, do you, will you? Do you have what it takes? Do you choose to have what it takes to step forward and make the changes necessary to make yourself better at whatever it is you do, at life, at living? Can you improve? Can you get better? And are you willing to make that list and go for that list and make that list a reality? I think what makes Goggins such a powerful role model, inspirational speaker is he's done it. He's done it.
It's the reality of a lot of people's lives. And so, yeah, that had to happen for me to be haunted, to pull out, to extract the guy I am today. That haunting is something that's still there today. Because no matter how much you improve, no matter how much you change who you are, it's not permanent. You don't just wake up and say, oh my God, man, you're David Goggins, you break records, you do this, you do that. People want to know, how are you able to just be so hard? Because I never turned the fucking thing off. Because once it turns off, I go right back to the David Goggins that is.
I mean, this is an interesting point, right? I mean, I think it's an interesting point. There's truth. There's also some falsehood here, but the truth is that you always have to be on. The fundamental choice Ayn Rand teaches us, the fundamental choice that all of us face, is to turn it on. It's to be in focus. It's to use your mind. It's to be on the premise of think. Engage, connect with reality. It's all about being in focus mentally. And if you turn that off, if you just say, you know what, this month, I'm not going to think. This month, I'm not going to use my mind. I'm going to turn it off. Now, I think that's almost impossible for most of us. But imagine if you could do that. What you would revert to is living kind of at a perceptual level, and there's no guidance there. And of course, in the case of somebody like Goggins, or any of our cases, I mean, if there is still psychologically, still remnants of that person that we were a long time ago, maybe before we clearly turned it on, before we started really engaging with reality, then we sink to that level. We return to that being. That's what he's arguing. And I think there's some truth to that. But the more we integrate, then the less that old being goes away, because you're now somebody new, something different, based on everything that you've done over the last 20 years. It's still true, though, that once you turn off that focus, there's nowhere to go. We are a rational animal. We're either thinking, oh, we're kind of moving towards death. Maybe in not the same way as we did in our childhood or in our youth, because certain things, certain habits are going to be different now. But he's absolutely right. Once you turn it off, once you say to yourself, well, I'm not gonna think, I'm not gonna focus, I'm not gonna engage, you're basically reverting to being an animal. You're basically turning off what makes you human, turning off what makes you a man or a woman, turning off your basic means of survival. And then it's just a question of what kind of accidents hit you, what happens, what doesn't happen, what you respond to, what you don't respond to. You've lost your steering, you've lost your map, you've lost the directionality, you've lost your guide to living your life. You are not yourself anymore. You're now being driven by everything outside there. And one of the things I like about Goggins the most is how focused he is on choice and on focus. It's your choice. You get to focus. You get to decide.
And that's the guy that I'm constantly fighting every day. And it's a choice. And that choice makes you misunderstood. It makes you crazy. That's why I hate fucking social media.
So part of the challenge, I think, part of the challenge is that for him, to be focused, to be an achiever, to pursue excellence, whether he says it makes you crazy, whether he thinks it makes you crazy, I don't really think so. It makes you appear crazy. And he is concerned. There's no question he is concerned about how other people are judging him and thinking about him. We'll see that later on as well. But what I love here is he says it's a choice. You get to decide who you're going to be. You get to decide what you are. And I know a lot of people out there struggle with that. They struggle with baggage, psychological baggage, relationship baggage, personality baggage that many of us carry around with us. And there is a real challenge of, are we going to get that baggage have the best of us? Are we going to let that baggage take control of who we are and what we are? Or are we going to make choices? Are we going to choose who to become? And again, the fundamental choice here is to focus. It's to think. Now, he's not going to say that. He doesn't have the concept of focus in the same way Rand does. His focus is single-mindedness. Our focus is more really put things into focus, concentrate on reality, facts are facts. Use your mind, reason is one's cardinal value. That he doesn't have, and he's not going to have. I mean, that's not part of his philosophy. Maybe it's implicit, but for us, if you're listening to him and you're taking inspiration, that's what you should be inspired around, right?
In 2013.
Yeah, I'm going to skip this. Let me take another segment here. This is from later on earlier on, somewhere in the interview. This is about studying and learning, which I found fascinating as well. I mean, here's a guy who, again, has real challenges in learning. So let's listen to this. This one, yeah. Okay. Whoops, I've got it muted for some reason.
ADHD. Like my brain cannot retain information.
His brain cannot retain information. Part of what I love about this segment is he's basically saying, you could interpret it, for those of you who love IQ, he's basically saying, I have a low IQ. I'm not that intelligent. I can't retain information, can't read really well. It goes in for one ear, it goes out the other ear. I can't hold it. And yet, he knows a huge amount. And I think if you just talk to him, you'd think, wow, this guy's super intelligent. He certainly comes across that in the Huberman interview. How does he do that? Not innate skill. It's not in his genes.
I'm not some genetic freak when it comes to running, when it comes to lifting weights. I am absolutely the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, so he says even physically, even when it comes to physical activity, he's not a LeBron James. He does not have the genes to incline him towards that. So how does he do it? How does he do all these things?
And people will never believe me. And they can just, whatever, believe what you want to believe. So when you ask me this question about what does studying look like for me, I have to go over the same page over and over and over and over again. While Jennifer can look at that page, while she's, quizzing me, she'll learn it right then. She doesn't know anything about it. She will quiz herself or quiz me and learn it as she's quizzing me. It's the most frustrating thing in the world how my brain works. So what I do is I literally sit there with a pen and paper, and I have my books, and I go through and have to write everything down every single day. I will study the same page until it's photographic memory from writing the same thing down. And then from there, I'll go back through and relearn again. So I'll learn the bulk of it, but then I'll go through and learn the small things within that. So
I think this is amazing, right? It's amazing. And it's amazing because how diligent he is, how serious he is, how self-aware he is. But the reality is, what he's showing us here, I think, and this is crucial, is that human beings can overcome so much. Everybody has to figure out the method by which to overcome whatever it is handicap you actually have. But you can overcome so much. So many people out there use intelligence, genetic intelligence, whatever that means, as an excuse. Either to condemn other people, because they're not as smart as I am, because I belong to this and this group, and they belong to that and that group. Or to condemn themselves, well, I was born stupid, what can I do? Or how many people have the genetic capabilities to be unbelievably smart, have the ability to be brilliant, but don't do the work? However smart he is, he's doing the work.
if it's a medication,
And the point is, and when he talks about medication, he's talking about medications he's studying as part of him being an EMT. At whatever level you are, the goal in life is not a competition. The goal in life is to be the best that you can be. The goal in life is to take whatever context you have, whatever genetic makeup you have, whatever background you have, whatever context you were born into and grew up in. And given all that, given that as reality, how to be the best that you can be. Is David Goggins going to be a PhD in theoretical physics? No. Who cares? He doesn't need to be. But he's decided he's going to be a really, really good EMT, which means he needs to understand the functioning of the body inside out. He needs to understand every medication, its impact, when to use it, and its impact on the body, side effects, all of that. He needs to know all this stuff. So his attitude is he's going to study till he gets it. He's going to figure it out. He's going to find a way to integrate that knowledge into his life because that's the value. That's a dimension by which he wants to be the best that he can be. And he's not going to accept excuses he makes for himself. So many people out there do constantly make excuses, live by those excuses, and have mediocre or less lives. You don't want to have a mediocre life. You want to have a grand life. I mean, by your standards. What's possible to you in the context of your ability and your knowledge.
I'll learn what the medication does. I'll learn how to even say the medication. Because these medications aren't like, like albuterol. No, it's very big words. So I'll go through, learn how to say the name. Then I'll go through, learn what the dose is. Then I'll go through, and this is like every single day. It's not like, oh, I got it. Let's just go through. No, nothing is I got it. Every single thing. I can't wait to get in this conversation because everything I do in life, it sucks. Everything I do in life, it sucks. That's why.
Now this is problematic, right? Because I think this is the wrong way to approach it. Everything I do in life, it sucks. I think what he really means is everything I have to do in life is hard. But he's mixed here. There's definitely, and we'll see it later on, we'll see it in one of these segments. It's definitely the case that for him, a lot of this is duty, or he holds it as duty even if it's not. Everything I do, it sucks, it's painful, it's a lot of it is hard. And we'll talk about, we'll see, kind of the contradictions he has around motivation in a little bit. Let's do a little bit about this from this. We'll slowly progress there, but you'll see that there's a little bit too much of a duty premise here. There's a little bit of, I just need to do it. Just do it. Just do it. Disregard for, I guess, motivation, for hierarchy of values, for purpose, for where am I heading, for happiness. Other places he acknowledges it's, again, very mixed on these issues. But I think, really interesting. I think objectivist Ironman fans listening to this can extract from it the value and ignore, if you will, the stuff that is not that consistent philosophically, not that consistent from an ideas perspective. But there's a spirit here. There's an energy here. And there's certainly, a focus here that is so, and a focus on excellence, which is so typically absent from our society. Whoops, did it again. To unmute.
Strong will.
Strong will.
It's something that you build. Like, I never forget, I was on a podcast one time, and this dude goes, you were blessed with a strong mind.
And that's such a typical attitude, right? If somebody's successful, well, you have the gene for success. You have the gene for a strong mind. You have a gene to make the right choices. But as David Goggins says, no, it's not about blessed. It's not about genes. Quite the contrary. It's about the work you put in.
The hell are you talking about? It's blessed with a strong mind. That's something that you have to develop.
Beautiful.
You develop that over years, decades of suffering and going.
Yeah, it's the suffering. He's got the Jordan Peterson curse of emphasizing the suffering, the suck, the hard, the difficult, the pain, instead of the reward. It's all rewarding. It's all rewarding.
Going back into the suffer. That's why a lot of people who graduate Navy SEAL training, they want to know, like, I talk about it very openly all the time. A lot of guys don't want to go back into that water. Don't want to go back into the hard stuff. Maybe not anything hard. Anything hard in life. Once you get through it, it's like you become a POW. Like, how many POWs want to go back to POW camp? None. When something sucks so bad in life, this is on this that we're talking about now, very few people want to go back. They're happy they graduated. I realized I'm the same way. I don't want to go back. I have to go back. I must go back. Because that is exactly where all the knowledge of my life exists, was back there, and what you're talking about.
So for him, the knowledge of your life, the value in your life, comes from the suffering. That's when you learn the most, you learn about yourself the most, you perform at your best. It's from that suffering. It's from that hardship. And again, I think that is wrong. I do think you learn a lot from being challenged. I do think you learn a lot from doing things that it was inconceivable for you to think that you could do. I do think you learn a lot while you suffer as well, objectively, when you suffer and bad things happen. But for David Goggins, there's too much of the motivation is, you just got to do it. You got to do it. And the more you suffer, the more you learn. The more you suffer, the more you grow. And, much of life is not about suffering. Much of life is not about suffering. And much of life is not about living at the limit, certainly on the physical capabilities. But it is true. It's going to require work and work and work and bleeding. If you remember Whiplash, the movie, remember the kid is drumming and his hands are bleeding and he keeps on drumming because it's the only way he'll gain that level of excellence, that level of perfection that he's trying to achieve. It's going to be hard work, and hard work is hard. It's not pleasant. If you're just looking, for pleasure constantly, you're not going to achieve excellence. Excellence requires you to do the work, and the work might be super hard and super unpleasant. But you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve without it.
Well, I didn't know anything about this, but how I grew a will was constantly doing these things. To now, it's just life. I wake up, while it still sucks, it's just life.
I wake up while it still sucks, it's still life. I don't believe his life sucks now. And I certainly don't think you should have the attitude, or any of us should have the attitude, well, life sucks, but I got to live it. I just got to live it. There's too much of a duty premise here. Here are the things that you're supposed to do, that you must do in life. There's not enough happiness. There's not enough focus, emphasis on joy, on the purpose of the suck. Suck is sometimes necessary, but it has to have a purpose. It has to be an outcome. That outcome has to lead to the gaining of values that make your life meaningful, and that make your life whole, and that make your life happy.
You don't sit back and like, oh my God, like I have days I don't want to do it, but I know I'm going to do it. I know from years of just doing it.
Yeah, there's too much of just do it. There's too much of Peterson here. Again, I don't think it's Peterson's influence. The duty ethics goes back to Immanuel Kant, at least, right? And there's too much of a duty ethics kind of attitude that's in Christianity, but it is in Kant. Kant secularizes it. Okay, let me move ahead a little bit here. And I want to show you that there's some contradictions here where, we'll see if we get to that.
Long time ago. I found it right there in that willpower thing. When you're nothing, and change yourself into something like me, you call it happiness, peace, whatever the fuck you want to call it, people are missing exactly what went on with David Goggins. Why don't you smile? I do. But I figured something out. That's why you'll never hear me say I'm missing something.
Yeah, so he considers himself happy or at peace. He has transitioned from the misery to happiness. So there is a goal. There is something. There's a state that is achieved at the end that is a happy state. I like the fact that he said, but you don't have to smile and don't have to exhibit it. It's an inner state. It's not something to be, it has to be on display. But it is, understanding that the suck leads to a certain state, which I think is what the argument he's making, is absolutely right. I think there's too much emphasis on suffering, too much emphasis on suck, too much emphasis on life is hard. But that this leads to a state of happiness or peace. If the values are the right values. Is absolutely right. He says the F word all the time. I mean, he curses throughout the interview. Every second sentence, he's cursing constantly. I've chosen not to try to exclude those. It's impossible to do. But to build that inner strength, to know your abilities, and to devote yourself to building that inner strength, that is crucial. And then I think just in less than a minute here, he's going to get to what I think is the most important thing that he says.
I found it years ago. You find it in the suck. You find it in the suck, and you find
that I doubt, but yeah.
Find it repeatedly in the suck to the point where you know exactly who you are. Most people are missing something because they don't know who they are.
That's a great point.
They never examine themselves. They've never.
Excellent point. Self-examination, knowing who you are. Most people don't do it. Most people do not do it.
Ever done this experiment on themselves. The lab rat, we're all lab rats, but you're also the scientist. You create your own self.
Wow. That's, just for that sentence, it's worth it. You create your own self. You make yourself. You build your soul. Man is a being of self-made soul, if you choose to make it. Man is a being of self-made character. You make yourself. You build yourself. That's impressive. And this is exactly the opposite of the culture in which we live. A culture of entitlement, a culture of blaming everybody else, a culture of lack of personal responsibility in this deep sense of responsibility. Not just responsibility for making a living, but in the responsibility of making yourself, the responsibility of creating yourself. That is such a beautiful sentiment. That, if we take something from David Goggins, you can start at the bottom, by every measure at the bottom. Not smart, not strong, not physically well. He suffered from all kinds of diseases in his youth. With no role models, nobody around, although we'll get to role models in a minute, nobody around him. And to turn yourself into something, to create, and to turn yourself into the kind of person you want to be. That's true achievement. That's truly something. Let's listen to that again.
The lab rat, we're all lab rats, but you're also the scientist. You create your own self. Most people are missing something because there's so much trapped in there. I don't even want to say potential. I think that's word used out too much too. There's so much in you that God or wherever the hell you believe in, or if you're an atheist, in you, that you have not unlocked. That you walk around with this gorgeous wife or great husband, and all this money, you're like, God, I feel like I'm missing something. Yeah, because it's about 75% of you is still fucking in there.
Yeah, this is all in the context of all the people there who are missing something, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about this with Aina Hussi Ali. They're missing purpose. They're missing meaning. They're missing, find it. It's not out there. It's in you, in your abilities, in your capabilities, in your values, in your focus. So he's poo-pooing this whole idea of, I'm missing something. No. Life is full. if you really know yourself and you live up to your own abilities and you exploit your abilities, your interests, your passions, your values, then that's what it is. Then you're not missing anything at that point.
Still chained up because you just didn't want to find your willpower. Didn't want to find your soul, your will, your heart, your determination, your guts, your courage. What that looks like, it looks scary. Like your little scary lab I went in. Scary. To wake up every day and say, I'm stupid, but I want to figure out a way to be smarter.
That's great. That's great. Not that everybody's stupid, but I am who I am, and I'm going to be better. I'm committed to being better. Now, that's pride. And what David Goggins has in abundance is pride. He started out with a little bit, he says. Now, he's pride. What does pride mean? Pride means the ambition to be the best that you can be, to be morally perfect, to achieve in every realm of your identity the best that you can. All right, let's see. We're gonna go. We've got a couple more. This one's really quick. I love this. This is about being kind of second-handed. This is really good.
Tips worked for me. Sometimes they didn't. But that's who I am. One thing I did wrong in my life was I tried for so many years to please people. And I did it at the expense of myself. I was leaving a lot in the tank. And when you do that, you stop living.
You stop living by focusing on pleasing other people and not living up to your full potential, not being egoistic, not living based on your values, leaving a lot in the tank, not being the full you. Then you're not living. You're not living. I love that he says, you're not living. You're not being alive.
But the person in your life is happy as fuck because you're giving them everything they want. They have their life is full.
I don't think they really are happy, but
empty.
okay.
And that's not a relationship to me. So for me, it's important that you know exactly who I am because this is what life made. And I'm not trying to change it because I just figured it out. So I'm not trying to compromise David Goggins. I would
It's not compromising David Goggins. Beautiful.
never, ever compromise David Goggins. That doesn't mean I won't give you what you need and what you want and what you desire. But I don't need money. I don't need fame. I don't need shit. So I give it all away. What I do need is to make sure that that willpower is worked on every fucking day and every night for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean that's again excellent. What I I wish it was more philosophical. I wish it was more a lot of things, but that stuff is really, really good. And to live your life based on your standard, your values, your willpower, to do what you want to do, and if you're gonna have a relationship with other people, it cannot be by compromising who you are and what you are. It cannot be by selling your soul. It cannot be by giving up on what is important to you. Yeah, I wish we could tweak him, make him even better. But a lot of the stuff is really, really, really good. All right, 2 more short clips, and then we'll call it a day. There's no magic pill to success is the name of this short video. But this is about, this is an example where he's wrong. And then I'll show you in the next video, which is where he, in a sense, he doesn't know he's doing this, he corrects himself. But this is I think where he's wrong.
About how you can get somewhere and how it looks. It looks very ugly.
Notice everything, getting anything in life looks ugly. It doesn't have to, really. It doesn't have to. For most people, for our values, it's not about the suck. It's not about the pain. It's not about the ugliness. It's not about the horror of it. And particularly when you know why you're doing it, what the standard is.
There's no fucking passion. There's no fucking motivation. There's no, oh my God, man, no. It's every day of your life just doing.
Yeah, that's the Nike ad, just do it. That's the duty premise he's on. There's no motivation. There's no passion. Forget about passion, he says in other places. I don't believe in passion. I don't believe in motivation. Nobody needs motivation. You just do it. No. And it's not him. Of course he's motivated. He's very motivated. He's super motivated. He's motivated not to be the David Goggins of the past. He's motivated to achieve that state of peace and state of happiness that he mentioned. But he's also motivated by this. This is, I think, really interesting and also important. But listen to this. I think this where he talks about motivation, how to create your own motivation.
There. I used to do that when I was fat. Rocky, people know that was my thing. Round 14 was my thing. And as I got older and older and older, that started to go away. And I started to create all these people that I used to watch. Rocky was one, Barnes, Elias from Platoon, Jack from A Few Good Men. He's on the stand going crazy. I saw a lot of these characters that I looked at and I was like, man, I ain't got none of that. But they were characters.
And that's so good, right? So here he's using art as a motivation. These are the people, I'd like to be like them, but I'm not. I'm not at all like them. But I want to be like them.
After a while, I lived a life so disciplined that everybody that I once looked to, these fake characters, I built that as a man.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. So he's art has served a purpose in his life, which I think it can serve in all of our lives, and I think it should serve in all of our lives. It creates a certain ideal for which to strive towards. And this is real motivation. This is real hero worship. I want to be like Jack, although I personally do not. But in that movie, A Few Good Men, I want to be like Rocky. I want to rise up. I want to do what's necessary. I want to be tough. I want to be strong. I want to be smart. I want to be whatever it is you want to be. And then to live up to that, to the point where today he says, I got there. I live such a disciplined life today that I am them. I'm one of them. I'm better than them. I don't need them anymore. And that's great. That's great. I mean, it's what Ayn Rand talks about in the Romantic Manifesto as using art as a model. What would Howard Roark do? Of being inspired by a work of art. Inspired to be as good as the art reflects back at you. To be a David. To be a Howard Roark. To be a Dagny Taggart. So I love that at the end, of course he's got motivation, and that the motivation is the right kind of motivation. It's seeing excellence, identifying excellence, and wanting to be excellent. Be excellent. All right. Those are the clips I had. So, I mean, overall, I'm really impressed by David Goggins. I'm impressed by the path he's taken, by the journey he's taken, by much of the advice he's giving people in terms of focusing their mind, doing the hard stuff, committing yourself to a goal, the ability to achieve that goal. I love the stuff about creating your own life, creating your own person, in a sense. I mean, this is kind of what Rand talked about, creating your own soul, creating who you are, your character. Not accepting excuses. Not accepting that the external world somehow prevents you from doing that. That's beautifully said. Way too much emphasis on life sucks, it's really hard, it's really painful, I can only learn when I'm pushing myself to the edge. It's just none of that is actually true. And the fact is that pushing yourself to the edge is not necessarily, painful. It's not necessarily something to be avoided. It requires focus, it requires effort. But it doesn't suck. Pushing yourself to the edge is a blast. It's fun. It's adrenaline creating. And in that sense, or serotonin or whatever it is, that sense, it's inspiring, it's motivating. So there is this mixture of real greatness and really good stuff and real motivational stuff with this embrace implicitly and sometimes explicitly of a duty ethics focused on pain and suffering and hard work and all of that, rather than a focus. And I wish Goggins could do it, but a focus on the joy, the happiness, the pleasure that comes from working hard, that comes from pushing yourself to the edge, that comes from achieving, pursuing and then achieving excellence. The joy, the pleasure, the fun. At some point he says, I didn't show that. There's no fun. Forget fun. Nothing should be fun. Hard work. No, hard work should be fun. Don't reject fun. Don't reject pleasure. Don't reject enjoyment. And fully, as you integrate your own soul, as you integrate yourself, ultimately the hard work becomes fun. The pushing yourself to the limit becomes enjoyable. It might be hard, but it can be enjoyable. So there's too much emphasis on the negative, too little emphasis on the positive. And of course, the standard is not there, and the means is not there. The means of, if you really want to achieve happiness, if you really want to achieve success in everything in life, you have to be a thinker. There's some of that with David Goggins, but there's not enough emphasis on thought, too much emphasis on the physical, not enough on thought, and not enough emphasis on reason as the means, and not emphasis on peace, happiness, joy, pleasure. Don't deny yourself any of those things in the name of excellence. They are part of the pursuit of excellence.